Hello, and welcome to the Keiwear Show, where we talk about life, love, and the pursuit of happiness. I am your host, Keisha Mayo, and we have a great show for you on today. We have a very special guest. We have Cort, who's my big brother. He's a storyteller and author. He has a 30-year career in New York media market, working as a radio personality, a talk show producer, a reporter, media marketing and branding consultant. He's a concert promoter, a producer. He's a voice actor. I mean, he has so much stuff under his belt. But thank you so much, Cort, for accepting my invitation. And please introduce yourself to my viewers.
Wow. Wow. What a wonderful introduction. I want to meet that guy. Keisha, it's a pleasure to be on your show. Thank you for inviting me.
Yes.
It's an honor, and I'm just so proud of the evolution that everyone knows as Keiwear and Keisha Mayo, and it's a pleasure to be here. Thank you.
Thank you, Sean. And Sean, when I think about you, I think about our years in the Kiss Inspiration Choir. I mean, we had some good times, didn't we?
Oh my gosh.
We had some great times. But, I'm going to start from the beginning. How was your upbringing? How did you come up?
Well, I was born in Guyana, South America. And, some folks who don't know, Guyana is the only English-speaking country in South America. And I was brought here at 5 years old. I was raised from first 5 years of my life by my grandmother. And I came here and I grew up with my mother and went back a few times. I was a latchkey kid, and my younger brother and sister came along, and then I became babysitter, Cinderella, as so many of us did. And at an early age, about the age of 15, a lot of things happened then. I started in the oratory pursuits and speaking at my school, and then the bug called radio came about. One of people very instrumental for me getting into radio was the wonderful Fred Buggs, who we know. I've known Fred since I was 15. I know the gentleman Barry Mayo, who's a legend in radio and TV One, and another gentleman named Tony Q, who's now I think a radio station owner in the Jacksonville area. And those three men were extremely instrumental. And then the incomparable, legendary, the late great Bob Slade became my radio dad and my mentor and taught me just about everything that I know.
So those were the ones who inspired you to get into radio.
Yes. Radio chose me. I was actually pursuing being a federal prosecutor. I was pursuing a law career. And when I say radio fell in my lap, it was Fred Buggs one Sunday night. Remember when they had a request line? You can call in to make a request?
Yes, I remember that.
I called in on a Sunday night and Fred Buggs picked up and we talked literally for 2 hours.
Wow.
And he told me all about radio. And I was, again, 15. My voice still hadn't changed. And it was a fascinating thing. He said, you should come through. Come on up. And I did. And I met Charlie Berger and a couple other people. And these people were very instrumental. Radio was a very, very different medium back then.
Right.
And it was something where it was based on a different skill set than what radio is based on today. We'll leave that
and you never had a problem speaking, Sean. I remember that from Kiss FM.
Yeah, I had to get together.
Toy would just let you go and have your way.
Right. Oh, yeah, exactly. So the music director was very instrumental. In the choir and all that sort of thing.
But talk about some of the radio platforms you've been on.
Oh, okay. So we, started off, my first opportunity in radio, Bob Slade gave me an opportunity to work with a show called Youth on the Move. It was a vignette series, like minute 35, and there would be like 5 different parts to it on a weekly. And about 15, I was interviewed on teenage suicide by another wonderful radio legend. Her name is Linda Moore, who was claimed to fame was ABC Radio Network. She now lives in Ecuador. Linda interviewed me on teenage suicide, and it was a big thing. I became a part of that time another thing called New Youth Connections. That was a newspaper in New York City back around that time for New York City youth when people read newspapers. And after Youth on the Move, I started with KISS as the public affairs coordinator, and then became the public affairs director, started the gospel show, KISS Inspiration, who the first Diana King. But I was able to get some music from some friends locally and provide the music because, we didn't have music at the radio station at that time. and then started. Let's see, Bob Slade was very instrumental in a lot of mediums in news and reporting. And then Charles Warfield pulled me under his wing in the area of promotion. I produced the first authentic gospel concert at Madison Square Garden.
Wow.
It was Radio
Wow.
Hall, Carnegie Hall, Symphony Space, Beacon Theater. Charles guided me to an area, or introduced me to a lot of the business of
Right.
being the talent.
And I tell you, that was a blessing to us, you know, just being in the choir, because we got to meet so many awesome singers. I mean, we met James Moore through the Kiss FM choir, backing him up at the Beacon Theater, and, you know, Kirk Franklin. So we met so many people just by, you know, being a part of that time. And I'm grateful for that, you know. And I'm not sure if you're still on the radio now, but would you consider returning to radio?
I've had opportunities to. I did some radio here in Orlando, the town I live. The first smooth jazz station that started the format of smooth jazz back in the 80s. I was doing that down here. I was the midday person. Became very popular. Then I did at the same time Kiss transitioned to smooth R&B and classic soul. They were doing the same thing down here, so I was a fill-in guy for that. They made me an offer to be full time. But after a while, it just wasn't the same medium anymore. WLOQ, I was the midday guy. Then I was the morning person. And then I also did crosswalk.com, which was one of the first applications of internet radio, if you will. I was their gospel host back in 1998. I was there first. And then I started spending more time in writing and getting to voice acting. Got a great agency, Innovative Artists. And they represent me. I've done from Nikes to McDonald's to Kleenex to a bunch of different names, and a bunch of drug companies. And I started writing for Psychology Today. I'm a writer for that. And then I started writing books. And I started a publishing company in 2010.
Yeah, we're going to get to that. We're going to get to that.
Okay.
Yeah. But okay, so you had the opportunity to go back into radio, because I was going to ask you, if you, went back into radio, would you start another gospel choir? Because that was amazing. I mean, people actually got saved just coming to that ministry. People who didn't even go to church, but because we, was lifting up God. I mean, we had rehearsals where we was, God just moved, and that was just such a blessing. So that's why I asked, because it would be a blessing to start another gospel choir, even with, the world that we in now with this pandemic. And, a lot of people just need to be uplifted and encouraged. But you talked about the voice acting, and I know you have so much going on, because you even went to I think your bachelor's and your master's in theological studies. So are you a pastor now?
Yes, I pastor. I was pastoring since I was in New York City in the early 90s, and I came down here. I'm actually pastoring a church now. We've been, it's called Freedom Perspective Ministries, started in 2012. And but what I've been doing, though, over the period of years before I started actually pastoring my own congregation, is I would consult and cover pastors, big names, and many of which you've heard of. I became their pastor privately.
Wow.
And help them write their books, help them ghostwrite their sermons, because pastors all need a time when they can go off to a place and be naked and unashamed. And they need that pastor, that brother. So one would say then you're an apostle, but I'm not big on names, and neither was Jesus. So yes, I've been the apostle, I've been the bishop, I've been all that sort of thing. At the end of the day, Jesus calls me son. So my children call me dad. My brothers and sisters in the Lord call me brother. So the apostle, yes, I've started churches. I consult churches and strategic planning and development and their branding and advertising and how to hire and build executive leadership. So I am an apostle in the true sense of the word, but I don't use that on my business card. So what I enjoy doing the most is mentoring leaders, and pulling the greatness out of people, especially when they've been shot down. In terms of starting or getting back into radio has changed a whole lot. Gospel music has changed a whole lot.
Yes.
And as you know, church has changed a whole lot.
Church has changed a whole lot. Yes.
Yeah. And so getting back into the radio to do gospel music, I don't know if that's even my format anymore.
Okay.
It's just a whole different thing, and I wouldn't feel comfortable, and they wouldn't be comfortable with me. So
Okay.
we'll leave that there. One thing about the choir, though, a lot of great relationships started out of that choir that
Yeah.
are wonderful relationships today. You
Mhm.
remember uh, one of our singers became a
Andrew.
multi-Grammy award winning
Andrew, right?
Andrew White. He produced
Yes. I remember Andrew.
Bruno Mars, Taylor
Bruno
Swift,
Mars was in the choir.
and he was, shy, skinny, tall, white dude, right? And he could blow. He was so
Right.
gifted back then,
Hmm.
and he was so unsure of himself. And we'd have many conversations, just building this brother up. And he went overseas, and the rest is history. Multi Grammy. We
Wow.
talk like, in fact, we spoke a couple of days ago by text, so we talk quite regularly. And I know there are a lot of friendships that came out of the choir where they'll be friends.
Yes.
They know each other before, and they're friends for the rest of their lives.
Yes. 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 A lot of friendships form. I mean, still together. Toy and I, we still, sisters, just like
Amen.
you and I, brother and sister, you still my big brother, and I
Amen.
appreciate, how you loved on me and my family, when we
Amen.
used to come to the choir. But I know with everything that you're doing, because you have so much, that you are doing, how do you balance career and family?
It all stems from honestly, it's about my relationship with the Lord. It's intimacy.
Hmm.
Um, in my church, we don't use the term Christian.
Okay.
We don't, simply because Jesus never uttered the word, and neither
Hmm.
did his disciples. That was an ethnic slur assigned by King Agrippa. And you go worldwide and you say to people, "I'm a Christian," they look at you kind of side eye, like, "Okay, what kind of Christian are you?"
Hmm.
And so we use disciples. That's who and what we are. And so the church has a branding issue. And
Hmm.
so what keeps me is the understanding the brand that I represent. And it's about a brand of relationship and intimacy. It's a vertical relationship. It's up and down. It's not sideways. And if I work on perfecting my relationship with him, then my relationship horizontally with people will be a lot better. And so that's what
Right.
keeps me balanced. I've learned to respect time. I learned to respect my
Right.
peace. And
Hmm.
I respect others despite any orientation. We're all God's
Right.
children. And if I
Hmm.
learn to teach people and work with people through the gift of love,
Hmm.
then everything else falls into place.
Right. And now, any of your children want to follow in your footsteps? I mean,
Well,
do
yep, both
radio?
of
Any
them.
of them had, those desires?
Yes, both of them. They both have had
Oh,
internet presence and social media and disciples. They both won people to the Lord. They both pray
wow.
with
That's
people
awesome.
regularly. My oldest son, Christian, is out of school and he's going to be pursuing medical school or PA school. He's trying to
Wow.
decide whether to be a physician assistant or medical school. My younger son, Aaron, is finishing up his senior year, pursuing political science and international law. So he'll be starting law school shortly. And they both was thinking, well, okay, should we get our graduate degrees? And I said, nope, don't do it. Don't do it
Hmm.
because it's a call. There
Hmm.
are a lot of people who get doctorates, double. I mean, I completed a year and a half of my PhD, and I could finish it up very quickly. But I realized Jesus needs us in the mission field.
Right.
He needs us working. He doesn't need us necessarily, getting more scholarly appeal because the Sanhedrin court, they're all scholars, right? But had no
Hmm.
relationship. So I'm not advocating not educating yourself in the word. That's very,
Right.
very key because you got a lot of people out here that are misteaching and mistreating the word.
Hmm.
But you can have a career that has influence and reach and still minister to people.
Right. That's so true.
What you do in the word is personal.
Hmm.
Amen. And
Amen.
how you live that word is what's public. You don't
Right.
need a degree for that.
Right. And I remember Sean, it's funny, we was singing together for so many years. And I remember when God told me to pick up my book, which I never wrote it with the intentions of being a book, but I remember when God, told me to put my story or to pick it back up because he wanted me to get my message out and I didn't know what to do. I'm like, who do I turn to? I don't know how to do a book, and I could go into the whole story, but I won't. But I tell you, it's so funny because then I think you moved to Florida and I remember you had your own publishing company, True Perspective. And I was like, me reach out to Sean because God is telling me to, to do this book, but I don't know where to go. What do I do? And I was just so grateful that I reached out to you. And Deceive actually was published through your publishing company. So tell the people about your publishing company.
Sure. And what people don't know about you, this sister here is a true entrepreneur. And what I try to teach all of our authors, 380, 89 authors we have, I try to teach them how to eventually fire me one day if they choose to, and to show them about branding. It's about ministry. And the same thing with you. And when you wanted to get into the bookstores, and I shared with you an idea and how you call, and I said it's going to be hard. They shut your doors. They're very hard. It's a corporate industry. You have been able to do what Barnes and Noble, what probably a handful of authors have been able to do from huge publishing companies, because you didn't take no for an answer.
No.
And they were soon to figure that out. You know? And when they meet you, they realize you're authentic. You love the Lord. You're convicted by your calling. You're convicted by the oil on your life. Mm-hmm. And the favor of God is an amazing thing. He opened up doors where there were walls. And look at you now. You've got your brand. And this was from experiences. Some would say from pain. Some would say from scars. Yes. And those scars paved the way to where you are right now. And that's not even a glimpse of where you're going. It's an amazing thing. Yeah. Amen. Amen. And you know that. We talked, we prayed together and talked together and fought together. But at the end of the day, look at you now. That's the outcome. So in terms of the publishing company, what we are a hybrid of traditional and self-publishing. So self-publishing is that you come to us with a recipe book on 40 ways to prepare quiche, and you got a bunch of typos and mess ups in there. We'll publish whatever you want to publish and get it out there, and you're on your own. That's traditional self-publishing. We do provide the full boatload of services, the full suite of services, I say, from ghostwriting to proofreading and editing and branding and marketing and so on and so forth within the industry, distribution to all 7 continents. We show you how to brand, show how to market, show how to do video, show how to use social media. And we give every author a 1-hour mediagenic consult, whether you use our entry levels first-time storyteller package or you're paying multi-thousands of dollars, is we spend an hour with you showing you just how to use what you created and take it to the next level. Because people think just because you publish a book, people are going to buy it. There are about 6 million books that get published every year. Right. And yours is just a drop in the bucket. So we share with people how to get your book noticed and how to get satisfaction. Right. And you actually have 4 books under your belt as well. Yes. Actually, I've written about 78 books. What? But I ghostwrite for a lot of people. And what I do with some authors, I actually give them concepts. And so they'll come in with one concept and I'll say, that works. I can take your money, publish you, but you won't be happy. How about this idea? Take this and add this and add that. And they've hired me and said, well, you write it. So I've ghostwritten many books that were totally my books, and I gave it to somebody else. So when you ghostwrite for people, you don't get any credit for that? No. Oh, wow. That's the ghost. You don't see a ghost. Oh, okay. Anyone that ghostwrites and you see their name, they're not a ghostwriter. they're the author. I mean, it is what it is, right? So, and again, you get compensated by the pay. yeah, they are. And that's it. Like Steve Harvey does not write books. T.D. Jakes does not write books. They're ghostwriters for them. And there's nothing wrong with that. It just is what it is. And you've been a creative writer for television as well, right? Yes, I've done that. And again, in a ghost form, let's put it this way. I've written sermons for many people that people watch on TV every week. Millions and millions and I've been writing their sermons for months, or in some cases, years. And because they went to that place to where they needed to bear themselves. And they were either not in good relationship with the Lord, or they fell out of grace with different things and they didn't want to be exposed. So the Lord had me cover them, and they never skipped a beat. They're still the famous bishop, that person, this person. And yeah, we sign an NDA agreement where I don't disclose their issues and they don't disclose the works that I do for them, and that's perfectly fine. So books in terms, I've written 4 books myself that have my name on it, and there are
Right.
books written for women. One is called
Mm-hmm.
Bruised Yet Priceless: How to Deal with Betrayal. It's done in English and
Mm-hmm.
Spanish. Another one's called Single and Complete, about single women. Before you look for that man, first give the man what he wants and expects from you, and then he'll give you the man of your dreams. And another one's called The Power Perspective, which is learning how to see life from the perspective of God on demand.
Right. Wow, that's awesome, Sean. And I know you also coached and consulted with professional athletes, entertainers, CEOs, and politicians. You know, how did that go?
So one of politicians we probably know of is Congresswoman Val Demings. She
Mm-hmm.
was part of the Trump impeachment.
Mm-hmm.
She was running locally. I met with her campaign staff on a couple of occasions, giving them ideas. And you do what you do. I do that for local. I do it for national. I've done a lot of stuff for the Republican National Committee prior to its current stance. Let me make that clear. This was back in the days before things went off the rails. Because behind the scenes, Democrat, Republican, Independent, these people are
Mm-hmm.
all friends. They all go out to dinner together. They all share the same ideals. It's politics, it's entertainment, it's appearances. So they all eat from the same table. They all govern themselves basically the same people. Some people you've grown to hate in politics, you
Mm-hmm.
meet them off camera, they're some of the coolest people you'll ever meet. It's
Wow.
politics.
Mm-hmm.
It's business. And so I had a chance to do that. A lot of doctors, uh, pharmaceutical companies. I write a lot of their direct to consumer
Mm-hmm.
branding because when you go to a doctor, how do you know what to ask and
Right.
what the drug does? I write for American Psychological Association. I've written articles for them. I still do have an actual page in APA. In fact, there was a company we started about, oh dear Lord, 15, 16 years ago, which was the first company to do therapeutic assessments online with
Mm-hmm.
American Psychological Association. This basically you know how it is now, you can log on and deal with a therapist, never meet
Right.
them.
Mm-hmm.
We started that.
Wow.
And yeah, it's fascinating. Life is just an amazing journey and filled with
Mm-hmm.
opportunities once you avail yourself to those opportunities.
Right. And Sean, what mark do you want to make in life?
Um, the Lord has already got me well on that, and that is teaching people the importance of making good choices.
Okay.
Neurologists say we make 30,000 choices or decisions every single day, knowingly and unknowingly. And if we can just think about making the proper choices first thing in the morning, and the way you do that is you plan the night before. Right?
Mm-hmm.
If you go to bed late, you're not going to get a good night's rest if you got to be up at 4. So you got to plan the day before. And it's all
Right.
about planning and choosing. I want people to learn how to make better choices. And we
Mm-hmm.
are held accountable to our choices.
Right.
And it's key. I want people to learn how to make better choices and how to guard their joy and their peace
Mm-hmm.
voraciously. If you learn to protect your peace and guard your joy, life's good. But most
Find
people
your joy. I like that.
we make poor choices.
Yes.
So we
Yes.
are always fighting for our peace because we don't have joy.
Right. I like that, Sean. I'm going to use that.
By all means, please
But
do.
what was, the most memorable moment in your career with everything that you've done and still doing? What was most memorable to you?
Um, One of the most memorable times was with the late great Dr. Miles Monroe. He was one of my mentors,
Okay.
and it was a phone call, and he called me up middle of the night. He was flying back from someplace, and he says, "Hey, young man, how are you?" Young man was his phrase, or young elder. I said, "I'm doing well." And he said, "I've been praying, and the Lord laid you on my heart, and I wanted to call you." And he answered every question I asked the Lord before I went to bed that night. And he
Hmm.
says, "You no longer need me as a mentor. In fact, you've been mentoring me for our last 3 conversations. You didn't even know it." And he says, "The pureness in your heart for the Lord is why he has made you truly a leader of discipleship."
Hmm.
And that was a very memorable moment because, as you know, Dr. Miles Monroe, they call him a true general.
Hmm.
he's a thought leader. And I think there's never been another thought leader like him since, and there won't ever be. But he said, if I could do it all over again, this. I have no evidence to prove this. He said,
Right.
the way you're doing it, and that.
Wow.
And I've had lots of people, international names, have asked me to be on their board and to be part of their think tank. And if people only knew this boy born in South America who mom and dad wanted to abort because I was an inconvenient truth, that my grandmother said, you take care of this boy for 5 years. He'll be a fulfillment of everything I've promised your bloodline. And I never thought that I would literally be consulting kings, queens, presidents, ambassadors, and now getting into a situation with Africa where I'm actually going to be consulting nations. So that's a wonderful thing.
Wow. And Sean, what are your plans for the future?
To literally, living abroad and teaching abroad. And again, discipleship is a different thing outside of the United States. In fact, there are other countries looking to send missionaries here because this country needs discipling in a very, very big way. And so I would like to teach missionaries over there to prepare them for the United States mission field.
Well, thank you so much, Sean. This has been an awesome conversation. I'm so happy that you came and, spent this time with me. Thank you for being my very special guest. And, please tell my viewers real quick because we have to end the interview, but I want you to let them know how they can find you. And, if they want to reach out to your publishing company, just give them that information real quick.
Sure. Our website is trueperspectivepublishing.com. True Perspective, Perspective, publishing.com. Our phone number is 407-383-3356. And again, Keisha, I am so proud of you. You are brilliant, anointed, and talented. And again, you have not scraped the surface where God is taking you. I'm so amazed and I'm completely blown away. So proud of you.
Oh, thank you. And I love you, Sean. And I just want to thank everyone for tuning in. Please join me next week for another episode of the Keiwear Show. You can follow me on all social media platforms and on the internet. And remember that Keiwear is the key to knowledge. God bless you all, and I love you.